Okay. Okay, welcome back to Michaela's questions. We're still on the subject of the third temple. Will there be a third temple made of stone, or will it be the temple that, as we've talked about, the scripture shows us, is the temple of the hearts of people? I've actually heard some people say, well, there's a temple of stone, and then there's a spiritual temple that is the church. Listen, the Lord doesn't identify two temples in the last days. There's only one, and it is the people of God, as he has said over and over again. I'd like to take time now to look at another proof scripture that people use to try to show that there's going to be a third physical temple or a temple made of stone in the last days. The context here is found in Daniel chapter 11, verse 31. It's speaking about the little horn, or the Antichrist, in the last days. And it says this in verse 31, "And forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, and do away with the regular sacrifice. And they will set up the abomination of desolation." Now, the interesting thing about this is that they look at this and think, okay, well, that means there's going to be a physical temple, and the Antichrist is going to sit on a new mercy seat. This is how they interpret this. And he's going to show himself there, but that actually will be an abomination. Well, listen, if the Antichrist is in the temple on the mercy seat, then that would be the temple of God. But Scripture has already identified the temple of God as being the hearts of people. And we've already gone through that in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Christ bought every single heart on the earth. He owns every single heart. And so every single heart is his temple. It doesn't mean that every person has put Christ on the throne in that temple or sitting on the mercy seat. Okay, and some will put people, they'll put sports stars, they'll put rock stars or whatever, and then in the end they'll put the Antichrist on that throne. But it still belongs to Jesus. He bought it. And someday he will be the only one sitting on that seat. Okay, let's look at Daniel chapter 11, verse 31, and try to understand what it is telling us here. It says, "And forces from him," from the Antichrist, "will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress." Now, sanctuary fortress, as it says here in the NAS, the word sanctuary is the Hebrew word in Strong's numbers 4720, mikdash. It means a consecrated thing or place. So it doesn't mean a temple alone. Jacob's pillar, where Jacob set up a stone altar, was a sanctuary or a consecrated thing and place. Wherever you meet God is a consecrated thing or place. It's not just talking about a building. It's talking about a place. Now, it's interesting. It goes on, it says sanctuary fortress in the NAS, which is actually a fairly good translation. The word fortress, the King James, by the way, uses the word strength, sanctuary of strength, NAS, sanctuary fortress. It is Strong's number 4581. Ma'az, it literally means a fortified place. So it's talking about a sacred fortified place. Now, what do we have today that is a sacred fortified place that has to do with the Temple Mount? Well, it's called the Temple Fortress today. And you look at it, it's a fortress. The whole Temple Mount is surrounded by a big wall, complete with battlements where archers would hide behind and shoot. It's there today. And so it's talking about the sanctuary fortress. It's not talking about a new temple. People have to add that. They have to assume that. But that's not what it's saying. We have to go with only what the Scripture says. Remember that. And I'll show you this as we go along. So it says a consecrated fortress. a place of a fortified place that is holy, that is consecrated. So where today is a place on the Temple Mount that is consecrated or considered holy, but it has to do with the fortress or the walls of the fort. Well, it's called the Wailing Wall. And it's where the Jews meet today to obey the commandment from King David for the continual sacrifice. And they're there today, and that's why they roll up portions of prayers and they put it in the wall. It's so that David's morning and evening sacrifice would be going on continually. Even if they're not there, it would still be there because their prayers are written down and pushed into the wall, the fortress. The sacred fortress spot today is called the Wailing Wall. So it's identified in Scripture and very, very clear. Now, to understand this further, let's go back in Daniel and look at it again. There's a little more information given, and it will help us understand this very same thing in this place and this time. Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. And it says this, speaking of the Antichrist, and he will make a firm covenant with the many, that is the many enemies, for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering, and on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate even until a complete destruction. One that is decreed is poured out on the one who makes desolate. This is very confusing. Let me see if I can help you out. So the word in verse 27, sacrifices, he'll put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering. The word sacrifice there is Strong's number 2077 in the Hebrew. It literally means, according to Brown, Driver, and Briggs, a sacrifice of righteousness. So it is a sacrifice of righteousness. So there's something about it. It is a heartfelt sacrifice, a sacrifice of righteousness. Now, the word grain offering, it's not in the Hebrew. In the King James, it actually says oblation, which is much closer to the Hebrew. It's Strong's number 4503. It literally means a donation, a tribute, a gift, or an offering, almost always bloodless and voluntary. So it is an offering, a bloodless offering to the Lord. It is a sacrifice to do it, and it's a bloodless offering to the Lord. And that's why the NAS said a sacrifice or a grain offering. It's not a grain offering. That misses the point. But it is a voluntary offering. Now, this is very interesting. We're going to come back to this. But let's look for a moment. Let's go back one more chapter in chapter 8. And let's look at verse 11. It says, it, the little horn, the Antichrist, it even magnified itself to be equal with the commander of the host. The word commander of the host is literally prince of the host. And it removed the regular sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. Now that's very interesting because regular sacrifice, let's look at that. The word regular, that's NAS. It is Strong's number 8548. It is literally the continual. The continual. And the word sacrifice is supplied. The translators felt it was implied, and so they added it, but it's not there in the Hebrew. It's literally, they removed the continual from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. Now, the prince of the host is Christ. His continual is going to be stopped, And the place of his holy spot or sanctuary will be thrown down. Now we see that continual spoken of in 1 Chronicles 23:30 for your notes, in Hebrews 13:15 through 16, and in Psalms 141 verse 2 for your notes. Look those up, please. It'll help you understand this, but I'm going to speak of it now just for time's sake to tell you what it is. It's David's commandment. David commanded that the priests of the Lord have a continual offering of a sacrifice of praise to the Lord, and that it should be in the evening and in the morning and in the evening every day. And it to this day is called David's continual. Now, a Hebrew reader of the book of Daniel would understand this. David's continual. Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, that's what he's talking about in Chronicles. So that's what Paul refers to in Hebrews. That's what David talks about in praise in Psalms 141:2. David's continual. The Jews to this day, they always prayed that they could come back and fulfill their king's orders. And so there are righteous Jews to this day that go before the Lord in their only sanctuary or holy place left on the Temple Mount, which is right at the wall of the fortress. And they stand there and they pray. And they sing and they praise. It's David's continual. And they are fulfilling their king's commandment. And it is a continual offering of sacrifice because they're sacrificing their time, their energy. They're there before the Lord, sacrifices of praise to the new David, which is Christ. Now, it's very interesting. Let me go back to Daniel chapter 9, verse 27 and continue there. It's interesting. Let's go back and look at the next thing. It says in my NES, and on the wing of, then it says abominations will come. So people have tried to understand, what does it mean on a wing of? A wing of what? So it's talking about the Antichrist, they think, being set up on the mercy seat, that becoming the abomination. Inside a rebuilt temple, then they go, but what does it mean here on a wing of? So they look up the Hebrew word. It's Strong's number 3671. It literally means, the word is kanaf. It literally means an edge or an extremity. Most translate it as on a wing of or on the edge of. So it's very interesting. What it's saying is, here is the temple fortress. It's a fortress. We see that in 1131. And so on a wing of, or on the very edge of that fortress, that's the sanctuary or the holy place, it says the abomination that causes desolation will be set up. So the translators have looked at this, they said, oh, the Antichrist is sitting on the mercy seat. Well, what's it mean on a wing of? So I've actually read this. They said, well, okay, it means on the side. So it means he won't be sitting in the Holy of Holies. Then what's the point, really? So they say, oh, on the side of the Holy of Holies were two little alcoves where the high priest would change his robes before he went into the Holy of Holies. That's it. He's going to sit in the coat closet to show himself as the King of Kings. What King of Kings would sit in a coat closet, number one? And number two, the Ark of the Covenant is sitting in the Holy of Holies if they have a rebuilt Ark of the Covenant. It doesn't make any sense at all, you see. And so they've stumbled all over that, and just finally, and I've read this, they actually, very well-known scholars have said, oh, he must be sitting in the coat closet. How ridiculous is that? Listen, He's on a side of the temple fortress that circles the whole mountaintop. Today it's called the Holy of Holies. That is where the Antichrist and the abomination that causes desolation will be set up, according to Scripture. I'm going to end here, and we'll see you on the next installment of Michaela's Questions. Lord bless.